He goes on. Right, our next speaker is Adam Elliot-Cooper, who's a research associate in geography at King's College. He's on the steering group of the monitoring project, and many of you will know from both his activist and scholarly activity around the place.
Cool, thanks. So I'm not going to talk for too long, so we've got as much time as possible to have a discussion. But I guess what particularly interested me about coming to the... Oh, sorry. I guess what particularly interested me about the legacy of Southall and the importance of the legacies of Southall was the fact that, and I guess it's been mentioned a couple of times already, that it was a successful campaign in as far as this area of Southall is now a no-go area for fascists, and it's something which developed a legacy which spread to other parts of London and other parts of the country and inspired places like Bradford and Whitechapel, and had links with places like Lewisham, which were also fighting to make their communities no-go areas for fascists. And when I think about what the legacies are of that today, I think about, and this comes out of conversations I've had with other people like Gargi and other friends, that there is this continual, I guess, broad, old coalition between the far right and the British states. And the way in which we see that manifested today, I think, broadly speaking, is through these kind of, these emergent black folk devils of the gang, of the terrorist, and of the migrants. And whether it be the so-called knife crime gangs, which have been problematized by lots and lots of people as being a moral panic which is steeped in racism, or the moral panic around grooming gangs, we see this as mobilising not just the far right, but the British state as well. And when we think about how this spectre of the terrorist is used to police not just communities in the streets, but also in our educational institutions and our hospitals and our youth clubs and our places of worship, we see again this old coalition between the far right and the British state. And when we think about the ways in which the people identified as migrants are policed again, we see it as this broad coalition between the far right and the British state. And so I think that one of the real imperatives that we can, I think, build around when it comes to the legacy of Southall is the fact that they developed an independent notion of community defence. And so as movements like those in Southall or Whitechapel or Lewisham or Bradford and other parts of the country made their communities no-go areas for fascists in the 1970s and 80s, I think it's imperative today that we make sure that our communities take that legacy and think about how it's being, how we can create communities of defence today. And think about the ways in which we can make sure that our schools and colleges and universities are no-go areas for the police and our border agencies. Think about the ways in which we can ensure that our places of worship and our community centres are no-go areas for police and border agencies. Think about the ways in which we have to ensure our hospitals are no-go areas for the border agency and the police. Because this broad coalition, this old coalition between the far right and the state is a continual threat that infects not just the streets, but the caring institutions, the educational institutions, the health institutions that we all rely on in order to live as a reasonable existence. And so through the legacies of making sure that fascism is a no-go area for many of our communities and the spaces that we rely on, we have to ensure that their partners in the states also understand that these are no-go areas for them too. I'll leave it there.
All right, go.